It'll all be over this time tomorrow.
Or would it just be starting?
Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in Andor, Episode 5, The Axe Forgets. Now, the title of the episode is about the harm that the Empire carelessly visits upon the poor and repressed peoples of the galaxy. We first heard it referenced in the episode here.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Now this is after Andor and Skeen are talking about their experiences in space juvie, where Skeen was processed and tattooed by the Empire. Now this of course is inspired by the numbers the Nazis tattooed onto Jews during the Holocaust. It's a way of saying you're not a person, you're a thing. Skeen's tattoo is even like a barcode, a way of showing that to the Empire, he was a thing to be scanned and processed, and not a human being. And because they regard him so lowly, the Imperials at that prison would never even remember Skeen, but he remembers them. The axe can scar 1,000 trees, but it won't remember any of them. But the tree will never forget its own scars, and the memory of a tree is centuries old. So this metaphor hits home later in the episode when Skeen reveals that his brother was a tree farmer.
Pepper trees. Centuries of them.
And that his farm was carelessly taken away by an Imperial prefect who just wanted the wealth and resources provided by the farm and didn't care about the people or history of the place. Now we see this Imperial attitude reflected elsewhere in the episode, when the ISB officer on Morlana is going to empty out a tenement building and his only concern is if it looks nice.
I was asking if this would do as your headquarters.
And the Imperial in charge only cares about title and station.
Could I be made prefect? The title, I know it doesn't come with extra pay.
Meanwhile, all the little people who are hurt by the government's careless actions are slowly getting together into a cohesive rebellion. This show is really something new in Star Wars. It's not filled with constant member berries. It's about characters with very relatable motivations, and I think that everyone can identify with the struggles of these characters.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'm enjoying it.
Me too, buddy. High five. And there are still lots of Easter eggs in the episode that I'm going to break down for you, so let's go. One of the most obvious Easter eggs is in the first scene with Cyril waking up in his childhood bedroom, where he still has the action figures from his youth. This is in his mother's apartment in Coruscant. As we saw a couple episodes ago, the apartment is on the lower levels, and in Coruscant society, the further down you live, the further away you are from the sun, the poorer you are. And this is why the criminal element hangs out on the ground level like we saw in Attack of the Clones. You know, people like bounty hunters, or people who sell death sticks, and the worst element of all, sports bars. So when Cyril watches the sunrise, he's actually watching the sun's reflection off of the taller buildings, a way of saying that he is far away from any kind of success. He can only see a reflection of the success of others. Later in the episode, he stares at another source of light, the hollow of Cassian Andor, the man who ruined his life. At breakfast, his mom treats him like a child who's been suspended from school. She pours him what looks like Cocoa Puffs, and then pours in some blue milk, like the famous blue milk that the Lars family drank on Tatooine.
Stop whining, Luke, and come have some blue milk.
At least I hope this is blue milk and not spotchka. There's also a Meluron fruit on the table like we first saw in Star Wars Rebels.
Melurons!
So his mother's name is Edie, and she is played by the great Catherine Hunter. I saw her once play Puck in Julie Taymor's Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was great. That play is actually on streaming, and I highly recommend you watch it.
All right. I am that merry wanderer of the night.
Anyways, Edie is full on babying her son while they're also guilt-tripping each other about not visiting. It's all very normal stuff, but it's actually showing us who Cyril is. He is someone who is trying to break away from home to prove that he is his own man, and yet his mom constantly emasculates him, treating him like a child and handing over his future decisions to his uncle Harlow.
What field is it he thinks I should be pursuing?
Now this is all setting up that he is going to become obsessed with hunting down Cassian, the Javert to his Jean Valjean. Capturing Cassian is not a way for him to fix his career, but it will prove his manhood. In other words, it's becoming personal for him, just like how the fight against the Empire has become personal to Lieutenant Gorn after the Empire killed the woman that he loved. Cyril will go after Cassian because capturing him is a way for him to prove his manhood to himself, and that makes his pursuit of Cassian all the more relentless and dangerous. Again, this goes back to the title of the episode.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
When Skeen asks who owns Cyril's pistol, Andor admits that he doesn't even know the man's name.
Whose is this?
Didn't get a name.
To Andor, Cyril was nothing more than a corporate police, but Cyril, like the tree, remembers the scars. When Skeen goes through Andor's stuff, we do see a few Imperial credits on the table, and then they start to talk about his juvie processing tattoos that I mentioned earlier. The tension between these two men is at the heart of Clem being accepted into the group, but I'm going to talk about that later on. This episode features a lot of character building and setup. In fact, Actually, I don't think it features a single fight, which is rare in a Star War. Most of the fights are psychological, like between Cyril and his mom, Skeen and Andor, and between Mon Mothma and her family. This is actually one of the storylines in the show that I am most interested in. Mon Mothma, the future leader of the rebellion and of the New Republic, is secretly funding this growing rebellion by moving money through different back channels. Later in the episode, her husband asks about a foundation that she suddenly started, and that foundation is probably a front for her to send money to the rebels. And by the way, if you're interested in back channeling funding of an underground revolution, you should support our channel and check out our merch store. We have lots of high quality ScreenCrush branded shirts, hats, polos, including this original trilogy t-shirt and our brand new limited edition shirt, Not the Bees.
Not the Bees! Not the Bees!
You can find the store in the link below or go to ScreenCrush.com and click on shop.
Hey, what underground revolution are we funding?
Oh, Doug, we are going to take down heavy spoilers once and for all. So, this episode shows us the cost of Mon Mothma's idealism. She is not able to devote time to her daughter, Leda. Now, Leda thinks that she is a political prop for her mother, and her mom doesn't even bother to argue with her.
That's just so hurtful.
But the real interesting player in all of this, for me, is Mon Mothma's husband. He is totally unaware of his wife's secret dealings.
Were you planning to tell me about this new foundation?
And something tells me that she hasn't told him because he's A, an idiot, and B, he wouldn't support her decisions. So I think this guy is like Cyril. He's someone who has become tired of being emasculated, and he's going to lash out to prove that he is his own man. So this episode features 2 breakfast scenes where 2 different mothers attempt to exercise control over their children, while both kids resent being controlled.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Mon Mothma is an idealist, but she is unable to share that idealism with her family, well, because it's too dangerous. Mon Mothma shielding her rebellious dealings from her daughter also mirrors Bail Organa, who kept his status as a rebellion leader from Leia until she was in her mid-teens. Now, even though Mon Mothma is wealthy and powerful, the person she has the most in common with is Nemec, the revolutionary who used old tech to explain a metaphor for freedom.
That dude is gonna die.
Yeah, big time, man. Nemec's the kind of guy who would, like, only listen to vinyl and then be like, nah, bro, I never listen to digital music because, like, that's how they find you. This kid is the Thomas Paine of the rebellion, and I love him. He goes off on a brilliant rant where he says,
"The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it."
And I love this statement that the Empire can commit 40 atrocities before you can even wrap your mind around a single one. This is what's happening in the world today. There are so many problems, horrific, terrifying things happening all around us that we can't even begin to comprehend them, and so we just want to be left alone, which Patty Chayefsky predicted in the movie Network.
It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. And all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living room.
And Nemec's words here,
"They will have to shake the galaxy awfully hard to loosen our grip,"
seem to echo what Leia would later say about Tarkin's Death Star.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
So, unlike Nemec, Andor doesn't believe in something, but he is against something.
Like your average midterm voter.
Dante D. Bruno on Twitter pointed out that the navigational device that Nemec shows Clem is actually an old Polaroid camera. Nice catch. Andor doesn't want to get sucked into this rebellion, much like Han Solo.
What good's your reward if you ain't around to use it?
I'm here for the money.
To symbolize this, he tosses away the nasty milk to show that he doesn't share their ideology or their food. But this episode is about how the team comes together and learns to trust one another. So by the end of the episode, Clem is sharing a drink with the crew. Now the Dre milk here also parallels Cyril's blue milk, another meal that's being forced on someone who's being forced into a way of life that they reject. And by the way, that Dre milk, that is made from the goats that we see here with the 4 horns. So I love the very slow way that he integrated himself with the crew. First, he basically has to take on more responsibility because they didn't even know how to read the weight of their cargo. And later, they learn to trust in his skills because he is a keen observer who notices like what hand everybody favors.
Right.
Nemec.
Favors right, but shoots left.
So Andor is hiding the blue sky kyber crystal that Luthen gave him.
Yeah, why is he hiding that?
Well, because 1, it's very valuable and he doesn't want them to steal it.
Hey, what are you doing? I'm just moving your stuff.
And 2, like we see in the episode, it's so valuable that it would make them suspicious of it. But the discovery of the crystal later forces Andor to come clean about his motivations.
I'm being paid.
This scene reminded me very much of the movie Saving Private Ryan. On the eve of the big battle, the special squad in the movie begins to fight amongst themselves, when Tom Hanks' John Miller ends the fighting by opening up about his personal life.
I'm a school teacher.
Also, the story of Andor being integrated into a new group seems mapped over Neo's arc in The Matrix. They both have to walk away from their old lives, take on new names, and are recruited by a new team to fight an oppressive force. They're given slop to eat, and there's a young guy who's just obsessed with teaching the new recruit his way of life. The Matrix also featured a Judas character, so we'll see if everyone on the team can actually be trusted. The training is broken up by a TIE fighter buzzing by. It goes by so fast that we know that it's not actually observing them, it's just trying to scare these farmers for fun. Another example of the careless acts by those in power.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
And Tweeting Chow on Twitter pointed out that these sure are some stoic space sheep who are not bothered at all by the flyby. And they also pointed out that the Imperial speeder bike seen here is a CPH patrol speeder that we first saw in Solo. At the Imperial base, Lieutenant Gorn is making sure everything is right for the arrival of the Coruscant engineer/rebel raid. This includes cleaning up the temple that the group is going to approach from. So in the last episode, I theorized that this could be an old Force shrine. I like the symbolism that the rebels would be using an altar dedicated to the Force as their staging point, because the Force is the source of all the good in the galaxy. And again, how do the careless Imperials treat this ancient shrine? They use it for target practice.
Target practice?
Later, an officer tells us the Empire's plans for this beautiful Aldhani landscape.
Is it true they're tearing this all down?
It's been discussed.
Again, showing how the Empire takes what they want and destroys what it doesn't want. And by the way, Gorn's last name, it's probably a Star Trek reference, right? To these people? Below we see a hallway in a familiar shape, like the one in the Imperial bunker in Return of the Jedi. It's also a hexagon.
Not the beast!
Quick detail I noticed about the ISB taking over Morlana. Notice that this guy is carrying around a machine that appears to be dry cleaning some clothes. It's a neat metaphor to say that the ISB is cleaning up this town. Meanwhile, another ISB officer, Deidre Miro, is working late because she suspects foul play.
If I was them, this is how I do it.
She's noticed various parts and gear going missing from random spots around the galaxy. She's seen a pattern that probably signals the very early stages of the rebellion. I mean, early rebels have no planets that are loyal to them, no resources, so they have to scavenge gear and ships off of Imperial planets. Now, each of these planets is a fun Easter egg.
Hosnian Prime?
Hosnian Prime is the future capital of the New Republic, where this happens.
If you like pina coladas.
She also mentions Kessel, the planet run by the Pikes, where they mine spice, first mentioned by C-3PO.
We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel or smashed into who knows what.
And then seen in the Clone Wars and then in live action in the movie Solo. They also begin targeting systems being stolen from Jakku, which, okay, is maybe a little silly, because Jakku is the planet that Rey grew up on in Force Awakens, and it was also the site of the final battle of the Galactic Civil War, hence like all the wreckage laying around. But in the Aftermath novel trilogy, we learned that the only reason the battle was fought there was because the Emperor's final contingency plan was located randomly on Jakku because it was a backwater world where nothing happened. So the Emperor's plan was the final stage of what's called Operation Cinder.
What's Operation Cinder?
Well, Operation Cinder is in case the Emperor was ever killed, he ordered the destruction of the Empire because the Empire was too weak to keep its Emperor alive, so hence it was not worthy of survival. Then the remaining forces of the Empire would gather on Jakku, where the Emperor built a giant bomb to destroy the planet and kill all the weakest officers. Then the remains of the Empire, the strongest, were given orders to travel into the unknown regions, where they were to rebuild and become the First Order, and also apparently to become the Sith fleet like we saw in Rise of Skywalker.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
God, I hate that movie. Anyways, the other planet that gets mentioned is Fondor. In the old expanded universe, Fondor was known for its massive shipyards, and they even built Vader's flagship, the Executor. But after Disney wiped away the remnants of the expanded universe, the planet still has a very similar history. It's still the site of massive shipyards, and it was featured in the game Battlefront 2. It's another site where the Emperor ordered Imperials to kill their own as part of Operation Cinder.
Operation Cinder is the last command of our Emperor, and the first step in securing our future.
Fondor is also mentioned later in the episode by Luthen.
And the one on the Fonder.
And I'm guessing this is because his ship was made at these shipyards. Deidre has many similarities to Cyril. They're both people who exist on the outside of power structures and who are driven by a singular obsession. Now, I don't think that Deidre is necessarily worried about her career here. I think she just wants to get to the bottom of this.
If I was them, this is how I do it.
Back on Aldhani, the crew are burning their model, a symbol that this training period is over because they can't leave any evidence behind. Now, while the team is traveling to their final heist, Mon Mothma and her husband are traveling away from a dinner party. We once again hear the name of the driver.
What's his name?
Chloris.
Just so we don't forget about him, because he's more than likely going to be an Imperial spy or a double agent who we're meant to think is an Imperial spy but actually is protecting Mon Mothma secretly. And elsewhere on Coruscant, we check in with the Spy Master Luthen. Behind him, we can see two Force holocrons, a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron. So the holocrons are basically recording devices that the Jedi and Sith used. Now, the Emperor ordered the destruction of all Jedi holocrons, and he collected all the Sith holocrons for himself. So I think these things behind Luthen are just replicas. He's using an old-fashioned radio radio to get news on the heist, similar to the old-fashioned navigation tool that Nemec read so much into earlier in the episode. So Luthen is worried about how the heist is going to go down tomorrow. He has a lot at stake here. If the team fails, then he can be linked to the robbery and killed. And the growing rebellion also needs this money very much. As we learned in the last episode, their funds are running dry.
It's just getting very dangerous to move it around. I can't pull funds the way I used to.
And speaking of the last episode, I missed a couple Easter eggs. One, that Luthen's disguise makes him look very much like Senator Palpatine from The Phantom Menace. It's symbolic that he is also a person living a double life, but also, since Palpatine is at the very center of Coruscant society, it makes sense that people would imitate the look and style of the most powerful man in the galaxy. And I missed these 3 stone carvings, which is embarrassing because this is like a really obvious Easter egg for Star Wars fans. So these 3 carvings depict hands inside of a closed series of circles. In the show Star Wars Rebels, there was a mural on the outside of a Jedi temple on Lothal. The mural depicted 3 very powerful Force users called the Father, the Sister, and the Brother. We met these Force users on planet Mortis in a great 3-part Clone Wars arc. Now the 3 of them represent the good side, the bad side, and the balance between the 2. In fact, you know that the arc ends with Ahsoka kind of becoming the new embodiment of the sister, and so her spirit animal, the Al Morai, follows her around afterwards. So in Rebels, these 3 hands can be moved with the Force into a certain configuration that opens a hidden door into the world between worlds, which is basically a way to go anywhere and anywhen in time and space. It's the only time Star Wars has ever shown us time travel. And I'm sorry I missed that Easter egg, it was a really cool one. But if I missed any comments today, please let me know down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash the bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.